The Tomorrowverse is the name of the DC animated universe reboot that takes place after the events of Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, and essentially just gives a brand new take on stories and characters in the DC universe, as it has a new art style, new voice actors, new designs, and implementation of new stories and characters. Every DC animated movie that takes place in this universe has the same art style as every other film, kind of like with the previous DC animated movie universe, where they all had New 52 inspired designs and the same animation style, while the Tomorrowverse has, you know, a brand new art style and direction with like a lot of bolder lines with some of their characters and just a brand new visual outlook on the DC universe. The first entry in the Tomorrowverse is Superman Man of Tomorrow, hence why it's titled the Tomorrowverse, kind of like with Arrow and the Arrowverse in the CW, and it essentially serves as the origin story for Superman and a great introduction to this new universe as a whole. The current release order for these movies in the Tomorrowverse serves with Superman Man of Tomorrow, Justice Society World War II, the two-parter Batman The Long Halloween animated movie, Green Lantern Beware My Power, and as of recently last month, Legion of Superheroes. We'll essentially just be going over each film and what it brings to the table for this new universe and how it introduces either certain future story arcs, characters, and just the overall status quo of the reboot and how it differs from the previous DC animated movie universe. Kicking things off, you have the Superman Man of Tomorrow movie, which I stated earlier is basically just an introduction to this new universe, kind of how I would assume Superman Legacy would be the actual true kickoff for James Gunn's DCU. And in this one, you see it's pretty much somewhat an origin story. Like you see, like, you know, after like Krypton's destruction, Clark is essentially like an intern for the Daily Planet, and he already is kind of like the Superman character, but he just hasn't established an identity yet. You know, he kind of just uses like darker clothes and like, you know, goggles to help cover his identity. And this movie also introduces us to Lobo and Martian Manhunter, as Lobo comes into the planet acting as a bounty hunter for Superman, as he is the last Kryptonian on Earth. And then you see kind of like the encounters and battles with Martian Manhunter and Superman against Lobo. And Martian Manhunter's role in the film basically serves as how he initially thought that Clark might have been a Martian due to his supernatural abilities, but then finds out that he's just a Kryptonian, and they end up forming a dynamic there. And the main villain, I guess, or the main common threat throughout the film is Parasite. Basically, he has the powers of, he can have the ability to absorb anyone's memories, but also their abilities as well. So if you were to touch Superman, all of a sudden he'd have Superman's powers or Martian Manhunter's powers, but he also have their weaknesses as well. So then they kind of had to play into that. And you also have introduction of Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. You see a little bit of the Daily Planet characters, and overall I'd say it's just a solid entry into the universe as you see Superman coming out and about. You know, it's not nothing too crazy, you know, I guess it's sort of a standard Superman origin movie, but you know, it's some decent action, you know, the animation's fine, and it just kind of gives you a precedent of what the future of, or what the, I guess, overall tone and well-being of this universe will be like. The next feature film in this universe is titled Justice Society World War II, and basically the main central characters is Barry Allen Flash and Wonder Woman, in which Flash is voiced by Matt Bomer, who played Larry Trainor in Doom Patrol. And the movie starts out with basically a team up with Superman and Flash, so I guess this universe already jumped to the fact that some of the heroes already know each other, but the Justice League has not been formed yet. And whilst they have an encounter with Brainiac, Dr. Fate somehow utilizes Barry Allen to transport him from Earth 1 to Earth 2. So he not only does he go back into the past, but he also gets transported to an entirely different Earth. And in Earth 2, he gets transported to World War II with the Justice Society. So that's how it kind of ties into Earth 2. And the JSA members during this time period, you have Wonder Woman, Hawkman, Black Canary, Hourman, Jay Garrick Flash. Barry essentially runs fast enough to help channel the Speed Force for the first time, and guided by Dr. Fate's voice, Barry Allen arrives during the past, in which he thinks might be like Earth 1, but it's actually in a completely different Earth in the past. And essentially the plot is just Barry Allen trying to help figure out how to go back to his Earth and in his time period, while also helping the JSA with the conflict of World War II against Nazi Germany. And they kind of team up to help stop the Nazis from leading coordinates to help lead them to an ancient artifact that could change the tide of the war. And the overall journey of Barry Allen's interaction with the JSA once he does get back to his Earth 1 time period inspires him to form the Justice League. So then he talks with Superman to give the idea that they should form a team of heroes during this Earth and time period, making both Superman and Barry Allen Flash founding members of the Justice League.
The others, there always are. But there are also others like us, heroes. Maybe if we stick together, we can keep the peace.
What are you suggesting? Like a club?
Yeah.
Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 and Part 2 serve as this universe's introduction to Batman, in which, you know, obviously it's inspired by the Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale Long Halloween graphic novel, and because of that I'm assuming this is around year 2 Batman, as this is the introduction of Batman in this universe. And Batman is voiced by Jensen Ackles himself, who did Red Hood and Batman Under the Red Hood. And, you know, the overall plot, very direct adaptation to the Long Halloween book, where you have the holiday killer who would commit murders on specific holidays the victims would be pertaining to the Falcone crime family. And then you also have characters, introduction to obviously Bruce Wayne Batman, Alfred Harvey Dent, Jim Gordon, the Falcone crime family, the Maronis, Catwoman. Very similar to like Matt Reeves' The Batman, as that was also inspired by the Long Halloween. Since this is Batman's earlier career as, you know, his vigilante crime spree, you see him kind of learn different things that he wouldn't have expected to have to adapt to. Like, he didn't think that he had to be like this detective, and you see Jim Gordon kind of, you know, guiding him on how to be a better detective, and you see that progression from Long Halloween Part 1 to Long Halloween Part 2.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hey, I thought we were just doing a thing. This little act doesn't get us anywhere if the guy gets hurt. You may be aces in a fist fight, but you've got a lot to learn about detective work.
I found him, didn't I?
It's not just about finding them. You gotta know how they're gonna help your case.
And you also just kind of see him learning all their physical attributes, like how when he's chasing Catwoman, you know, he kind of struggles because like his equipment is slowing him down. You know, he's a bit more brutal when it comes to like interrogating. He's a lot more head on whenever he wants to get answers from certain crime bosses or gangsters. Another really big focus in this 2-parter is like the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. You know, as in the end of the movie, you see Selina in Wayne Manor. And then the post-credit scene for Long Halloween Part 2, you see Green Arrow and the Flash showing up at Bruce Wayne's doorstep at Wayne Manor. So you already have an indication that the Justice League has already been formed after the events of Justice Society World War II, leading up to whatever adventure they're going to go on. Kicking into Green Lantern Beware My Power, you see how this movie establishes the fact that the Justice League has already been formed, as when this is basically just an origin story for John Stewart, and as he gets the ring and essentially goes to the Watchtower, you see Green Arrow, Martian Manhunter, and Vixen as members of the Justice League. So the universe so far kind of skipped the formation of the Justice League. You see Barry Allen Flash bring up the idea to Superman and Justice Society World War II, but you don't actually see forming together. And I guess it's already been established, as they kind of wanted to skip over that. And as I stated previously, John Stewart serves as the main character / Green Lantern in the film, and he's voiced by Aldous Hodge, who played Hawkman in Black Adam. And a lot of the main focus characters include John Stewart, Green Arrow, and Hawkgirl alongside Adam Strange. And you kind of see them go through the conflict that is like the Rann and Thanagar War, and the introduction to like Hal Jordan Parallax, who serves as like the main antagonist role at the end. You also see characters like Sinestro as well. In this movie, you also discover how majority of the Green Lantern Corps was pretty much slaughtered, you know, due to like the efforts of Parallax taking over Hal Jordan, which is, you know, reminiscent of like the comic storyline. Essentially, after Sinestro had destroyed most of the Green Lanterns, Hal Jordan had claimed all the rings for himself after he was infected with the Parallax entity, and pretty much enhanced his power to like godlike state, in which that's how John Stewart has to end up facing up at the end of the movie. In a typical superhero fashion, John Stewart finds a way to defeat him, and then you see the rings kind of go off into space to hint at the new formation of a new Green Lantern Corps, and assuming that John Stewart is now a member of this universe's Justice League. And at the time of this video, the most recent Tomorrowverse movie that's come out is Legion of Superheroes, which essentially is just a Supergirl movie. I don't know why it's called Legion. It literally should just be called Supergirl and Friends or whatever, as the actual Legion of Superheroes themselves really aren't that focused on that much. It's mainly just Supergirl and Brainiac 5. But basically, the beginning of the movie serves as like the origin for Supergirl. You know, she's very new to Earth. And, you know, Batman has like an interaction with Superman saying how Supergirl is really having trouble, you know, controlling her powers, fitting in, and how she could be kind of dangerous.
In the short time she's been here, she's destroyed buildings and failed to control her powers. Worse, she doesn't care. With her abilities, that makes her a threat.
I don't like what you're implying.
And then Supergirl overhears and she gets really upset about that, and this entices Superman to suppose the idea of her staying in the 31st century or in the future with the Legion of Superheroes, you know, kind of train there and get to hone her skills and abilities over there. And over there she interacts with characters like Mon-El and Brainiac 5, in which basically the overall plot is the group called the Dark Circle wants to get their hands on a certain machine called the Miracle Machine, as it's a device capable of bending reality to the user's will. And then it turns out that Brainiac in the 21st century actually manifested the Dark Circle group, and how Brainiac 5 is a clone of Brainiac, and his overall existence was as a way to be a 12th level intellect to like find a way to unlock the code to get said machine. And it's actually the same Brainiac that got the bullet, you know, thrown at him by the Flash and the end of Justice Society World War II. So I guess that's how it kind of ties back into that. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, they end up defeating Brainiac and, you know, defending him from getting the Dark Circle. And Supergirl throughout the film forms a relationship with Brainiac 5, and basically that's just how the movie ends, and she ends up staying in the 31st century. And then in the post-credit scene, as she talks with Superman, Batman and Superman pretty much get teleported from the space.
When we still don't know what's happening.
Into wherever, which leads to Justice League Warworld, which is the upcoming Justice League, or the next movie in this universe, you know, which is essentially that the Justice League, I'm assuming, is going to be teleported to Warworld and fight Mongol, as Mongol's kind of like the ruler of Warworld, and he'd be like the main villain of that. Warworld also serves as a planet where combatants are forced to duel to the death on, like, you know, kind of battleground type joint battle. Like, this is basically a giant battle arena, and there was also an interpretation of this in the Justice League cartoon as well, so I guess they might take some inspiration from that or in other comics material. But that's just kind of what we know so far and what to expect for the future of this universe. And overall, so far, it's been going on for about a couple years now. The first movie, Superman Man of Tomorrow, came out in 2020, and I'm not sure how long it's gonna last. I don't know if, but I highly doubt it, but I don't know if James Gunn's vision might kind of override this new universe going on, as it's not too big of a deal. But I would assume they'd announce more films in the coming months or so. I'm sure at Comic-Con they'll probably announce, you know, a couple more films in this universe like they did with last year. But I mean, it's all right so far. You know, I'd say a lot of them are good, except for, I guess, Legion of Superheroes and Green Lantern Beware My Power. Those two are like mediocre in my opinion. Legion of Superheroes is very safe, very standard, generic. Plot twist reveal with Mon-El was very predictable. As soon as you saw it, it was, you kind of knew what was coming. And they don't really give a lot of development and spotlight to the other Legionnaires. It's literally just all about Supergirl featuring Brainiac 5. And then Green Lantern Beware My Power. You know, the plot with the Thanagarian and Rand like conflict is kind of boring. And not a fan of what they did with Sinestro, not a fan of killing him off, not a fan of the Parallax Hal Jordan storyline, as that was a lot more fleshed out in the source material. And this one, it's like you do all of that in like an hour 20-ish minute movie. Just doesn't work as well for me. I don't think either of these movies are bad in any way, but they're just kind of meh. And then the rest of them I think are solid entries. I'd say the best ones so far is the Batman Long Halloween 2-parter. Yeah, if I had to rank them, it'd be Batman Long Halloween, Justice Society World War II, Superman Man of Tomorrow, Legion of Superheroes, and then my least favorite being Green Lantern Beware My Power. So it's all right so far. You know, I'm hoping they make more movies in the future, and I just hope it could stay toe to toe with the old DC AMU.